You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hey, welcome, folks. Welcome. You are tuned into America's Web Radio. I am Victor Armendariz, and this is the On Point with Victor show. Listen, folks, if you want to reach me, it's very easy to reach me. You can just do so. I love it. At victor@americaswebradio.com. Victor at americaswebradio.com. There it is. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm on there as Victor Armendariz. Just spell it right. ARMENDARIZ. You can find me on Instagram. I am Radio Victor. I could care less about Twitter, so don't even bother. And look, folks, if you're listening to this live and you want, and maybe you just found me, and again, thanks to all the listeners out there, but if you just found me, you can always find any of my shows on any podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever they're calling it these days, Stitcher, and just about any platform, you can find the On Point with Victor show. So if you just found me today and you're listening live, welcome. Glad to have you. And if you want to check out some of my past shows, you can find all of them. You can find them, again, on just about any podcast platform. Or you could just go to the source, americaswebradio.com. Not only will you find my shows, you'll find some other great shows that you're only going to hear here on America's Web Radio. So we've got a lot to get to today, folks. I know every week now you hear me say it. I don't know where to start. And honestly, I almost don't. Just between the parking lot and the studio, I'm either getting inundated by somebody texting me, or somebody's emailing me, or somebody mentions something to me when they see me walking. Oh, you're Victor, the guy on the radio. And they'll mention something about what they're thinking, or they have a question for me. And I'll come in with a stack of stuff on some points that I want to talk about, and then it usually, I never can pretty much stick to the schedule that I've got in my head, because there's just so much happening and so much going on, and there's such an assault on this wonderful, wonderful nation of ours that we call the United States of America. And some of you out there, some of my Democrat listeners, and yes, I know you're out there. Because you tell me and remind me often that you're out there. But, a lot of you Democrats out there, you just haven't seen yet, I don't think. I don't know if it's a combination of bad government education, or bad government-run colleges, or government-filled colleges. Just the mess that you're seeing on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, PBS. The problem with 98% of the media is you're going to hear a one-sided, very biased side. And if you just tune in to Entertainment Tonight, or People, or TMZ, or any of the late-night disaster shows, or you tune into CNN, MSNBC, PBS, ABC, NBC, any of those, NPR, you're not going to get the truth. You're going to be sugar-coated this revisionist history, or spoon-fed, I should say, this revisionist history. It's folks, I implore you to go beyond your comfort zone and start challenging yourself. Challenge what you're hearing from the Democrats. Challenge what you hear from establishment Republicans. Challenge what you hear from the media. You can go and do some searches on your own and validate things you hear, and most of the stuff you're hearing from the left, that you're hearing from the Democrats, that you're hearing from the media, you'll be able to blow out of the water if you just do a little bit of research. And one of the best search engines to use is DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo will not track you. They will not inundate you with ads. They're going to leave you alone and let you search. So I highly recommend, stay away from Google. Google's just going to track every move you make. They're going to inundate you with every kind of ad they want to throw at you. It's how they make their money, folks. And on top of that, they're going to shield you from a lot of truths out there. So get used to DuckDuckGo. Make that your search engine, DuckDuckGo. Trust me, you'll be much happier that you do it. And you will notice that when you do searches on DuckDuckGo, that you're not going to suddenly have all these pop-up ads popping up. It's a great thing, so give it a try. Plus, you'll find the truth. You'll find both sides. You're not just going to find a one-sided search. Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, all of those social platforms, they try and control what you see. They try and control the information that you're getting. But you're not going to get that on DuckDuckGo. If the information's out there, you can find it by searching on the engine DuckDuckGo. So I highly recommend it. So, but let me get to some things. Let's get into some things, because I get questions a lot. Victor, what do you mean? What do you mean that we need to pay attention to what's happening into the United States? What do you mean when you say that the Democrats are only looking for power and more power? And I have questions of what do I mean by Democrats wanting perpetual power? They want power for perpetuity. And what do I mean by when I group in some of the establishment Republicans with those Democrats? And folks, we'll get to some of this, and I'll get to more today, and I'll answer some listener questions. Because we have to really, as a citizen, it's your duty. It is your duty as a citizen of this country to stay engaged and stay informed. In fact, now that I've mentioned staying engaged, let me speak specifically to Georgia. So all of you around this country, this great, wonderful, wonderful land of ours, let me tread on your attention span for just a moment and let me mention the state of Georgia. Let me hone in on the state of Georgia. Now, it just so happens that the headquarters for On Point with Victor, America's Web Radio, is in Sandy Springs, Georgia. We are basically in Atlanta, Georgia. But I have listeners from California to New York to New Jersey to Florida to Texas to Utah to Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota. I've got listeners all over Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, everywhere. Tennessee, some great listeners in Tennessee. And I thank you all, but I do want to hone in just a little bit right now on the state of Georgia. Look, there's some polling that came out, and this is internal polling. So you can look, polling at this point in time, for the most part, you can just laugh at, pass it off. But when you see internal polling, even this early out, you should at least let it be a warning sign. And what has come out internally for the Republican Party in Georgia, and look, you guys have heard me talk about the way to really put Georgia on the right path is to really, really change the GOP in Georgia. The old guard, the old establishment grip on the state of Georgia, at some point we've got to break free of that. And that's something that, hopefully down the road we can do here in Georgia. But for now, it is what it is. And for the GOP to become victorious in 2022, we've got to make some changes. And it's got to come from the citizenry. And what I mean by that, if you're a citizen in Georgia, whether you're a Republican, an independent, a conservative, a libertarian, any of those things, a libertarian conservative like myself, we've all got to come together. It is time for the Never Trumpers to sit down and shut up. It's time for the Trump voter to not buy into conspiracy theories that's being fed to you by some Democrats and some establishment Republicans. Look, there are people feeding information, and look, I'm not trying to be mean. I have nothing against, I don't agree with Never Trumpers. I think they did more harm than good. So when I say sit down and be quiet, what I'm saying is we as the citizens in Georgia, as a voter, have got to come together. It doesn't matter if you were a Never Trumper before, if you were a pro-Trumper, it doesn't matter. What matters is, do you believe in this country? Do you believe in freedom? Do you believe in liberty? And do you believe in maintaining this freedom? And Georgia, for the most part, is run by the Republican Party. Some of them, and say the Georgia Senate, are more of the conservative side, and then in the House, you've got more of the establishment side. But they can work together, and that is much better than having Stacey Abrams and her crowd of progressive, socialist, Marxist libtards. You don't want them running this state. And we're headed that direction right now because too many of you voters out there, some of you on the Trump votings that support Trump, some of you Never Trumpers, you establishment Republicans, too many of you are finding excuses now. Oh, I'm just not going to vote for this reason, or I'm mad at this person, or this person's mad at me, whatever it is, or this candidate, I don't like Trump, but I like this establishment Republican. It doesn't matter anymore. None of that matters anymore. What matters now is going forward. And In 2022, Brian Kemp is going to be in the fight of his life, and that's Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, and that's if he makes it out of the primary. Stacey Abrams is poised, and let me tell you, she's got the support of almost 100% of the Democrats. And we had overwhelming turnout in Georgia. This business that Abrams is running around in the Democrats saying that Republicans don't want black or brown people to vote is ridiculous. The Democrat Party is terrified because there are black voters and Hispanic voters that are running to the Republican conservative side right now, and they're terrified. So they've got to try and divide the people more. So that's why they're out there trying to tell you and convince you that there's voter suppression going on. There's no such thing as voter suppression going on in Georgia, let alone the country. We had more people vote in the state of Georgia in 2020 than in history. That's not a sign of voter suppression. That is a sign of a lot of people getting out and finding a way to vote. And I'm not going to get into what was fraudulent and what wasn't. I want to move on and let's do what we need to do to win in 2022. And it's got to start here in Georgia because we have a chance here to reverse one of the Senate seats. You know, we lost the Senate seat. We lost both Senate seats. And we have a chance to get one back in 2022 because that crazy radical Warnock has got to run again. He's got to run in 2022 because all he's doing is finishing out the normal term. So we have a chance to win that back. But we can't do it if the Trump supporter is fighting with the establishment Republican and the never-Trumper. We've got to come together. So we've got to come together in the name of freedom, in the name of liberty. That's what we've got to do. And what I mean by this is we can't sit at home because we think the election's going to be stolen in 2022. And that's what's coming out in some of these early internal polls is you've got a bunch of voters out here in Georgia who are buying into the fraud still. And again, I don't want to get into what was fraud and what wasn't. You know, there's always fraud in an election, and we've got to do better. And in fact, the state of Georgia just passed a bill to do better. So kudos to them. They're actually moving. They're actually doing something. And some of it is psychological, of course, because you've got to get these. If you are a Trump supporter voter in Georgia and you're out there saying you're not going to vote and you didn't vote in the runoff election in January because you thought it would be stolen again, you got to get past this. If you don't vote, you lose 100% of the time. Are you listening to me? If you don't vote, you lose 100% of the time. So we've got to drop these conspiracy theories or anything else and understand that Georgia passed a rule. They just passed a law that is going to help elections. We're going to have IDs now for absentee ballots. We do not have mail-in balloting in Georgia. We have absentee ballots. And now you're going to have either your license number or your picture ID that's going to have to verify your absentee ballot. That is a great, great thing. That is going to ensure integrity in the election, more than happened last election. So if you're a voter out there and you're thinking, oh, the election's going to be stolen in 2022 and you're not going to vote, then you're giving it the vote to Stacey Abrams. You're going to give the state of Georgia to the Democrats. And if you are out there in Georgia right now and you've been enjoying being open, you've been enjoying getting your job back, you're enjoying going to restaurants, you're enjoying being able to go outside, you're enjoying being able to live your life in Georgia, it would not happen if Stacey Abrams was in power. I am telling you right now, folks. So, look, we're going to, right up here on the break, we're going to take the break here. And when I come back, I'm going to get into some more reasons why we have to be village. I can't even say the word. But let's just go to break. And when we come back, I'm going to get in why we have to be, we've got to be stewards and save liberty. All right, we'll be right back. This is America's Web Radio.
Hi, this is Rocky Blair, former four-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Vietnam veteran. As a board member, I'd like to talk to you about Warriors to Citizen, a nonprofit organization that helps American heroes, soldiers, police, fire, EMT, and their families recover from the psychological harm caused by career-induced stress. Over the last 20 years, broken relationships have been a major causal factor for the highest documented divorce rate and resulting suicides in this population. This program, From Warriors to Citizen, is delivered free to families by professionals, all whom served in uniform and understand the needs to be addressed. I ask for your support, so please go to our website, warriorstocitizen.org, and find out how you can help, either by making a donation or sharing this information with an American hero that you may know. And thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, join me, Roger B., every Tuesday at 1400 hours right here on America's Web Radio for the Locked and Loaded Show. We will talk about guns, weapons, ammo, gun accessories, prepping, and so much more. So be sure to join us every Tuesday at 1400 or 2 p.m. for Locked and Loaded on America's Web Radio.
Hello, my name is Colonel Retired Rick White, a United States Army veteran, and I'm the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. I would like to encourage all Georgia veterans to consider being nominated to the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. If you are a Georgia veteran, and the Georgia veteran's definition is you were either born in this state, or you lived in the state 10 years, or you raised your right hand and joined the military in the state of Georgia, you are considered a Georgia veteran. For further information, go to your website at www.gmvhof.org, or you can contact me at 678-427-0915. Nominations need to be in by the last Friday in August each year. Again, if you're a Georgia veteran or you're a friend or family member of a Georgia veteran, living or deceased, please consider nominating that veteran to this highly noble and rare Hall of Fame for our great state. Thank you so much.
And following what Rick was saying, this Saturday is going to be the induction ceremony that was postponed in last year for the 2020 class because of our good old buddy COVID. But it's going to be held this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. in Johns Creek, Georgia, at the pavilion at the Healing Wall. So everyone's invited. Again, that's 2 p.m. this Saturday for the 2020 induction ceremony of the 2020 class of people that were voted into the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. The only thing that Rick White reminds everybody to do is bring your own box of Kleenex. So with that being said, you're listening to America's Web Radio, and we're going to get back to On Point with Victor.
Okay, folks, I have untied my tag. Thanks to Legendary Dave. The word I was looking for was we must be diligent. So, look, folks, you know me. I want to be happy, and I want you guys to laugh, and I want you to enjoy your life, and we're not going to be able to do it in Georgia if we sit on our butts and we don't vote, and we allow Stacey Abrams to prance in here. And listen, folks, I want you, and especially you Democrats who are out there enjoying commerce, you Democrats out there who have your jobs and you're going to restaurants with the rest of us and you're enjoying Georgia. None of this would be happening if Stacey Abrams and the Democrats ran this state. They would have you in a mask. They would tell you to sit down and shut up and obey. You would be locked down in perpetuity. They want to lock you down to this day. And Stacey Abrams is out there running around on anybody who will give her, put a camera in front of her face. And she's out there saying that exactly with a wide angle. And she's doing it, and she's out there and promoting, oh yeah, lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. I mean, you've got to understand, the state of Georgia, during this whole COVID Wuhan virus outbreak, has done better or just as well as any other state out there, in many cases better. New York is having horrible response to the virus. Jersey, basically anywhere that's run by a Democrat, where they're shut down forever. They're shut down, they're not, they're open, they're closed, they're shut down, they're open, they're shut down, they're mask. Those states are worse off than Georgia, than Florida, than Texas, than Tennessee, all states of which didn't do a mask mandate and came out of lockdown as soon as they could, as soon as they realized that lockdown was a bad thing to do. And so those of you in Georgia who are thinking you want to sit this one out because you think the election's going to be stolen in 2022, you're going to give it over to the Democrats. And apparently most of the Democrats are just too clueless to realize that they vote away their freedoms with putting with somebody like Stacey Abrams in charge. You put the Democrats in charge, you're going into lockdown. You're going to have a mask tattooed to your face. That's the plan of the Democrats. The only answer the Democrats have failed in California. They failed in New York. They failed in New Jersey. They failed in Michigan. They failed in Illinois. They're failing everywhere, but they are doubling down because they will never admit that they were wrong. And that's a sad, sad trait, and it's a bad trait. So, look, I want to give a shout out real quick to a listener. I've got some great listeners in North Carolina that are having to put up with that. They've got a ridiculous governor out there. But these are some good listeners out there who made the comment that I like to talk with my hands, or I can't talk without my hands. That's a little bit of Latin in me. That's a little bit of the Jewish heritage in me. We talk with our hands. So, just in case you can't understand what I'm saying, you can look at my hands and you can read those. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more. That's basically what I want to say to Georgia. I just wanted to raise an early alarm in Georgia for my listeners out there in Georgia, of which I have a lot, and thank you so much. But I want to raise the alarm. Please don't get caught up into conspiracy theories or any kind of other theory, anything that anyone tells you and gives you a reason not to vote. Don't buy into it. Your number one purpose right now needs to be you're planning to vote. And not only are you planning to vote, you're going to talk to your friends and your family and your neighbors, and you're going to talk to them about voting. Not argue, not fight. Just talk to them and let them know this is why you're going to vote. You believe in freedom, you believe in liberty, and you're going to vote. Because if you don't vote, you're going to lose 100% of the time. Period. So, okay. Let me, I could do a whole segment here on I told you so's, and I don't do a whole lot of I told you so's, but I'm going to do a couple of I told you so's. I mentioned that last week's show and a few shows before that about the methods of the Democrats. If you look at what the Democrats are proposing, you can match their methodology with the same methodology that comes out of Marxism, Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto. If you just look at some of those things, you can see where the methodology of the Democrats comes from. Today's Democrats. I'm not saying all the Democrat voters. I am saying the ones in power. This is the majority of them, their kind of thinking and where it's coming from. My only example I've got to give you, and I told you so, was vaccine passport, papers. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 100% unconstitutional for any government representative, and I say representative because we are a government of the people, or at least we're supposed to be. So it is highly unconstitutional for any representative, whether they're a House member, a senator, or the president himself, for any of them to tell you you can't travel without showing papers. Is highly unconstitutional. Folks, this is the kind of stuff that you saw in Germany. This is the kind of stuff that the brown shirts and the black shirts, whether it was Nazi Germany or Mussolini Italy, I could give you plenty of examples of history. You do not want the United States to go down this road of show me your papers. Just go do a search on DuckDuckGo of show me your papers and see what comes up. If we allow representatives, our representative government, to take this kind of power and tell you, the American citizen for which they work for, that you can't travel without papers. Do you think for a second the politician elitist is going to not be able to travel until they show papers? Heck no, folks. They will get to do whatever they want. But you, the peasant, you, the citizen who they work for, won't be able to travel without showing your papers. Folks, this should alarm every one of you. And if you're a Democrat, it ought to alarm you as well. Because you Democrat voter out there, you Democrat voter who is a peasant, who don't realize you're the peasant, because you think you're part of the elite, because you're so woke and you're voting with the Democrat Party, that Democrat elite party is going to crush you just as quick as they'll crush the Republican or the Libertarian or the Independent. Because you won't be able to leave your state without having your papers. And folks, there's a huge, bigger picture here. They're just using this Wuhan virus to get every dream measure that they wanted. And I'm talking about the progressive Democrat of today, the socialist Marxist Democrat of today, the viewpoint today of this current Democrat Party is that they want you in your home, locked down with a mask on. They don't want you to be able to leave your state. And they're using this virus now because they're going to say they want this. They want vaccine passports. Where's it going to stop, folks? The question shouldn't be, can I travel? Do I need to show proof of vaccination? The question is going to be, what's going to be next? If you can't leave your state without showing papers, and folks, there are people in this country that can't get the vaccine. Not just because medically they shouldn't get it, but there are people in mostly minority areas that may not be able to get this vaccine yet for many reasons, mostly because of government reasons, because the government's trying to mandate everywhere instead of just letting the private sector give out the vaccine. So if you do these papers, you're the very people that these Democrats, and I tell you all the time, the very people the Democrats claim to help are the people that are going to hurt the most. And with these show your papers to move around, folks, it is so unconstitutional. And it just screams of the brown shirts from Nazi Germany, the black shirts of Mussolini. The people who beat people, if they asked for papers and you couldn't provide them, you got beaten in the streets. Is that the direction you want this country to go? And this is not hyperbole. Think about it, folks. In the land of the free, in the land that people want to get here every day, they risk their life to get here because this is the beacon of freedom. The freedom of movement, the freedom to be what you want to be, who you want to be, the freedom to figure out how to monetize your trade. That's this country. How does showing your papers to move about from state to state, how does that fit in with freedom and liberty? It does not. It does not. And the Democrats and the Biden administration, folks, right now are trying to figure out how they can pass a vaccine passport regulation where you, the citizen, can't leave. So let's look at it this way. Let's say you're a Democrat in California or you're a Democrat in New York and you finally reached your limit. You're tired of the lockdowns. You've lost your business because of the lockdowns. And you finally woke up and you truly were woke. You truly are awoken. And you want to leave the Democrat Party. And in doing so, you want to leave the state of New York or the state of California. Well, you're not going to be able to do it without your papers because the Democrats don't want you to move freely around this country. All right, folks, we're going to take another break here. We will be right back. This is the On Point with Victor show. I am Victor Armendariz.
If you live to serve and want to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army. With training in fields like medical care, linguistics, and engineering, an Army career can amplify your efforts with humanitarian opportunities all over the world. Plus, you'll receive competitive pay and incredible benefits, so you'll be taken care of, too. Learn more at GoArmy.com.
Hi, this is Rocky Blair, former four-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Vietnam veteran. As a board member, I'd like to talk to you about Warriors to Citizen, a nonprofit organization that helps American heroes, soldiers, police, fire, EMT, and their families recover from the psychological harm caused by career-induced stress. Over the last 20 years, broken relationships have been a major causal factor for the highest documented divorce rate and resulting suicides in this population. This program, From Warriors to Citizen, is delivered free to families by professionals, all whom served in uniform and understand the needs to be addressed. I ask for your support, so please go to our website, warriorstocitizen.org, and find out how you can help, either by making a donation or sharing this information with an American hero that you may know. And thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Karuchak. Join me and my co-host, Dr. Hal Schertz, as we talk about the topics that doctors talk about amongst themselves, such as Medicare, Obamacare, alternative forms of care, and health information technology. Join us every Thursday morning, 8 to 9 a.m.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we are back. Man, we are moving right along. I don't know where the time goes. You know, the Godfather used to say the fastest 3 hours in radio, and man, I know what he means. I know what he means, or I know what he meant. I know what he meant by that. So let me give you another I Told You So, since we're doing the I Told You So segment. I told you guys, and I said this a year ago, as soon as the Democrats were jumping on this mask wagon and they want to force you, not we recommend that you wear a mask because this country, is founded in freedom and liberty. Not, hey, we're going to recommend this, this, and this. Oh, no. They want to mandate it. They want to force you. Not them, but you. You see, folks, socialism is for the people, not for the socialist. So you see all these politicians, Pelosi forcing a haircut place to open up so she can get her hair done. Not you, the citizen, but she can do it. She's not wearing a mask. But you'll be fined for not wearing a mask. You'll be arrested for not wearing a mask. But not Pelosi, not Schumer, not the douchebag in California who's been caught not once, not twice, but over 3 times in a restaurant with no mask while telling you need to stay in your home. You need to be shut down. You've got this mayor in Chicago. You've got the governor in Michigan, the governor in New York, the governor in New Jersey, all doing the things that they're telling you can't do. And I told you a year ago with this mask business, it wasn't about your health. It was about control. And I told you that if you gave in and you allowed your politicians, local and federal, if you allowed your politicians to take this power, because the only power a politician can wield is the power that we, the people, allow them to wield. And if we allow it, and I told you back a year ago, if you allow them to mandate masks, that's not going to go away. If you remember a year ago, you were being told, we just have to wear masks until the curve is flattened. We just have to be locked down until the curve is flattened. We just have to be locked down until hospitalizations go down. We just have to be locked down for just a little while. Well, that turned into months and months and months. We flattened the curve, folks. But did you come out of lockdown? No. Did you come out of a mask? No. You still doubt me. And here we are now, over a year later, and they're still telling you to wear a mask. They're still telling you should be shut down. And if you don't believe me, go look what Biden said yesterday. Biden said he was asked in a rare instance where a reporter was able to ask a pre-approved, well, they were able to ask a question, but make no mistake, it was a pre-approved question. But they asked, President Biden, do you believe we should go in lockdown? Do you believe we should slow the openings? And he said unequivocally, yes. Yes, I do. He probably didn't know what he was answering to. But hey, the point is, the Democrats of today and the administration of Biden wants to put you in lockdown. And they want to keep you in a mask. And I told you this, folks. So go back a year ago, and you look at when they said, it's just until we flatten the curve. And then we flatten the curve. Oh, no. It's just until hospitalizations come down. And then hospitalizations came down. Oh, no. We need a vaccine. Once we get a vaccine, then we'll go back to normal. Well, we have a vaccine. And what are they telling you? They're telling you now, just because you have a vaccine, that you still have to wear a mask. And that is absurd. Absolutely absurd, folks. Absolutely absurd. If you've been vaccinated, there's no reason for you to wear a mask and no reason for you to social distance, period. But yet, it's political, and it's always been political. They want you wearing masks because if they can force you to wear the mask and force you to accept it as a norm, what do you think will be next? And this is why I keep telling you, do not take your freedom, your liberty, the founding of this country, do not take it for granted. Because at some point you're going to wake up and it's going to be too late to get it back. Or the way we're going to have to get it back if it's too late is going to be really, really ugly. And I don't want us to get to that point. Right now we still have the power. Only if we vote. We have the power, folks. I know that some of you out there are going, but Victor, fraud. I know that. I know there's fraud. But there are states that are actually doing things to get away from fraud and get into more election integrity. And Georgia's one of them. But no law is going to do the trick that turnout will do. Turnout. Voting. We can crush the Democrats in the state of Georgia and just about any other state if we just get out and vote. Now, who knows? California's about to recall their Democrat governor. Maybe California. Maybe they're going to wake up. Maybe the people of California are tired of voting for the letter D, and maybe they're going to actually go vote for a person who believes in freedom and liberty, a person who believes in opening the state, a person who wants to mimic a state who did it right, such as Georgia, Florida, Texas, Tennessee. Maybe they want to emulate that. So maybe the people of California are coming around. Hey, it could happen. It could happen. Okay, folks, I want to move on a little bit. I want to prove to you, I tell you guys all the time that the Democrats do not have your welfare at heart. They don't. Everything the Democrats do and are doing today is to gain power and more power. And everything the Democrats are doing today is trying to divide. They want to put every American in a box, and they want to put you in different boxes, and they want you to fight each other. Because if you're fighting each other, you're giving your alliance to the Democrat Party. You're giving an alliance to the letter D. And you're not paying attention what that letter D is doing to you, because you're too busy fighting the people that the letter D is telling you to fight. And that's terrible, folks. It's awful. And that's what they're doing today. And I'm going to prove it to you. And I'm going to prove to you that it's not just the Democrats, it's their sycophant media. The media is right along with the Democrats. They're the arm of the Democrat Party. They're the maybe they're a strong arm, maybe they're just that arm to make it sound pretty to what the Democrats are doing to everyone, or trying to do to everyone. But make no mistake, the Democrats, when they're out there screaming racism, they're only doing that. They're not doing that because they want to help black people or brown people or yellow people. They're doing it because they want to divide people. Because if they can convince you that you're a victim of some kind of systemic racism, then you're going to give them your vote, and you're going to give them power, and they'll have power over you. And that's what they're doing. And folks, let me prove it to you. Look, let me just jump into this example. Right now, look at the George Floyd tragedy. There's a case going on right now. There's a trial going on right now for the guy who killed George Floyd. One man was killed. One man was arrested. One man is on trial for murder. That's the way the system works, and that's the way it should work. But it didn't stop there, folks. Because the Democrats fueled rioting, because the media fueled rioting, and they allowed Antifa to go crazy, and they allowed BLM to go nuts. Look back, folks, and do some research and see how many lives have been lost since George Floyd. You're not hearing about them, folks, because it's Antifa that's doing the killing. It's BLM that's doing the killing. So how many lives have been lost in Minneapolis? Let's just use Minneapolis. Let's not even talk about Portland or Seattle or New York and these other cities. Let's just talk about Minneapolis. How many lives have been lost in the community where George Floyd was killed? In the name of racism, or in the name of anti-racism, I should say. Because, again, a man was killed and a man was arrested and a man is standing trial. That's the way the system works. But that's not where it ended. Go look at the number of people who have died because of the rioting and because of the looting, because of Antifa and BLM. How many people have died at their hands that you're not hearing about? Those are minority people, folks. Those are black and brown people that have been dying that you haven't heard about. You haven't heard about it. Let's talk about the property damage. Do you think the property that was damaged was all owned by white folks in Minneapolis? No, it wasn't. Do you think Minneapolis is run by Republicans? Nope. Pretty much been run by Democrats. And all of this, and a lot of this property that was damaged and destroyed and businesses burned and looted were black-owned businesses or brown-owned businesses or yellow-owned businesses. But you're not hearing about it. All of that damage, all of that theft, all of the destruction and lives lost. Because the Democrat Party and the media fueled rioting. Supposedly in the name of George Floyd. Are you starting to see what I'm talking about, folks? Are you starting to see how can you value one person's life and not value the innocent life that just was trying to run a business, or the person that was trying to drive through the streets of Minneapolis, or the person that was just trying to go to work, or the person that was trying to just go engage in commerce, who were beaten or dragged out of their cars and then beaten, or their business burned down. I mean, folks, that happened. It's still happening today. It's pretty messed up, folks. So are you starting to see what I'm talking about? The Democrats and the media, they don't have your welfare at heart. They just want to divide people. They want to keep a so-called cause going so that you will hate one another and you're not paying attention to what the politician's doing. So let me give you some proof of this. Let me give you some proof. Let me tell you about something you probably haven't heard of. And you need to ask yourself why you haven't heard this. Now, I would bet a good Vegas trip that most of you have not heard of what I'm about to tell you. Because the media is almost 100% ignoring this story. It's basically known as a media blackout. So there's basically a media blackout going on in the story I'm about to tell you. Now, I'm going to tell you this story, ladies and gentlemen, and I want you to first ask yourself, why do you think you haven't heard this story or more about it? And that story is a story just the other day of the death of a 66-year-old Pakistani man, an immigrant no less, from Pakistan, who was killed the other day by two thugs. A 66-year-old man from Pakistan, an immigrant, a brown guy, who was murdered by two thugs, killed by two thugs. And are you asking yourself right now, are you going, I haven't heard about this. I didn't hear about a Pakistani man getting killed by two thugs. Yeah, folks, this guy in Washington, D.C. was an Uber Eats driver. This Pakistani, this immigrant who came here, who was working, trying to make a life for himself, who maybe this car, maybe this was the first thing he's ever owned. You see, folks, there are no private property rights in many countries like there are here. Or at least for now, we have private property rights. There are many other countries that do not have private property rights. There are many people that come here that have never owned anything until they get here to this country and they start working, and then they buy a car and they buy a house and suddenly they own something. They own a piece of property. That doesn't happen in a lot of countries, folks. I know your government school isn't teaching you this, but it's true. So maybe this 66-year-old Pakistani man who was trying to protect his vehicle because that was his livelihood, being an Uber Eats driver. Can't be an Uber Eats driver without a car. Maybe this 66-year-old Pakistani man, maybe this was the first thing that he owned. And he didn't want to let it go to two thugs. But in D.C. the other day, two thugs jumped in his car. They tased this man, and they tried to steal his car. And this guy was hanging on and screaming, "This is my car, this is my car, this is my car." So picture this, folks. An Uber Eats driver, 66-year-old man, Pakistani, screaming, "This is my car, this is my car." Two thugs in the car trying to steal it. I'm going to go to break, and when I come back, I'm going to tell you what happened to that man. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, join me, Roger B., every Tuesday at 1400 hours right here on America's Web Radio for the Locked and Loaded Show. We will talk about guns, weapons, ammo, gun accessories, prepping, and so much more. So be sure to join us every Tuesday at 1400 or 2 p.m. for Locked and Loaded on America's Web Radio.
Hello, my name is Colonel Retired Rick White, a United States Army veteran, and I'm the director of the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. I would like to encourage all Georgia veterans to consider being nominated to the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. If you are a Georgia veteran, and the Georgia veteran's definition is you were either born in this state, or you lived in the state 10 years, or you raised your right hand and joined the military in the state of Georgia, you are considered a Georgia veteran. For further information, go to your website at www.gmvhof.org, or you can contact me at 678-427-0915. Nominations need to be in by the last Friday in August each year. Again, if you're a Georgia veteran or you're a friend or family member of the Georgia veteran, living or deceased, please consider nominating that veteran to this highly noble and rare Hall of Fame for our great state. Thank you so much.
If you live to serve and want to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army. With training in fields like medical care, linguistics, and engineering, an Army career can amplify your efforts with humanitarian opportunities all over the world. Plus, you'll receive competitive pay and incredible benefits, so you'll be taken care of, too. Learn more at goarmy.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back, folks. Okay, before I get in and tell you what happened to this 66-year-old Pakistani man, let me do this real quick. Get out your pen and paper. Folks, look, we here at America's Web Radio, we love doing what we do, but we can't do it for free. And so listen, if you can help in any way, you can be a patron of the On Point with Victor show, or you can be a patron of the car show, the classic car show, any show on America's Web Radio. You can just be a patron of America's Web Radio and help us out, because we do need help. We do have advertisers, and if you have a business out there and want to advertise, then write this down. Please email Victor at America's Web Radio or GM at America's Web Radio. We'll get back to you as soon as we can and give you all the information you need to become an advertiser, to become a sponsor, or to become a patron. If you're out there and you're an active listener and you just want to give $10, $20, $50, $100,000, no, if whatever you want to do to help out this station, we would really, really appreciate it. And I, from the bottom of my heart, will appreciate it. So again, email us GM at americaswebradio.com or Victor at americaswebradio.com. Mention Victor, and we'll send you a flag or some type of Americana sticker or something like that. We'll do something for you, folks. So, all right. So let me get back to this. So 66-year-old man, Pakistani man, hanging on to his car. Two thugs inside. They already tased the guy. They're trying to kick him out of his car. He's hanging on. He's half outside and half in the car, screaming, "This is my car, this is my car, this is my car." And you got these two thugs in there that hit the gas. And they proceed to drag a 66-year-old man down the road. Mohammed Anwar, that is his name, folks. Mohammed Anwar, Pakistani, 66 years old, immigrant, trying to work here in the United States to make a better life for himself, trying to protect the thing that he owns, maybe the only thing he owns, his vehicle. Two thugs get in it. He's hanging on. They barrel down the street, end up flipping this car over and killing Mohammed Anwar over a car. They kill this guy. Now, folks, why haven't you heard about this story? Why? The victim was a minority. The victim was brown. Why haven't you heard? Well, I'll tell you why, folks. Because the perp, the thug, the two thugs, they weren't exactly white. And why? So you need only ask yourself, folks, why isn't this front page news? You know darn well if the two perps, the two thugs, if they were white and they just killed a Muslim Pakistani man by the name of Mohammed Anwar, it would be nonstop 24/7 news. NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, NPR, CNN, MSNBC, every one of them would be round the clock showing you this video if it had been two white people that killed this guy. Because there is video, folks. There is video. Not just this is a story, but there's video. You can look it up and watch these two thugs bust into this guy's car, drag him down the road, flip the car, and kill him. It's on video. And you would be seeing this video ad nauseum if it were two white people that killed this Muslim guy. But it wasn't. It was two, let's just say, other color of skin thugs that killed this Muslim guy. And you're not hearing a word about it, because it doesn't fit the Democrats' narrative. You see, folks, they don't care about you, the citizen. They only care about a narrative that gains them power. And reporting to you that two thugs of another color killed this brown guy, a Muslim, they would only tell you that if it were white people that killed him, because then they could divide more of the country. Then they could say, ooh, look, there's systemic racism against Muslims. There's a systemic problem, white supremacy. But you see, they can't go with that narrative, folks, because it was two black thugs. And look, I'm not trying to condemn any one people. I am only telling you a story, and you can see the video yourself. But this just happened to be a 66-year-old Muslim man by the name of Muhammad Anwar, who was killed by two thieves, two thugs who wanted to steal a car, who happened to be African American or black, whatever you want to call it. And you're not hearing this story because of their skin color. Because of the skin color of the perps, the skin color of the thugs is the only reason you're not hearing this story. Folks, it's awful. And if you can bear it, go look at the video. It's terrible. And you know what really, really stood out to me, and this is what even brings more pain to my heart. There were people videotaping this whole thing, and not one person offered aid to this 66-year-old man. Now, folks, I can tell you this right now. Your humble host, who was all of 5'3", if I'm wearing the right shoes, I would have never stood by and watched this happen without trying to help this man. Now, maybe I would have just tried to pull him out of the car to save him from being dragged down the street. And I would have said, you know what, we can get your car later. But if, being D.C., not exactly like you can own a gun in D.C. You see, folks, only the criminals can have guns in D.C. But what it was just striking to me that there were people videotaping this whole thing go down, and not one person offered help to this 66-year-old man. Now, I don't give a rat's what color he was, or what his creed is, or what his religion is. I don't care. I don't care. To me, he was an American here, whether he was a citizen or not. He was here trying to work, and he was trying to make himself better. My guess is he was a citizen because of his age, or maybe he was a resident, but he was working, and he was proud of that car that he owned. So I really don't care what color he was. I don't even care what color the perps were. The point is that nobody offered aid. Nobody tried to help this man. And you know what's worse? It was a 13-year-old thug and a 15-year-old thug. Now, you're telling me you're going to sit by and videotape this, and you're not going to jump in and help this guy? You can't fend off a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, but you can videotape it? I mean, folks, what's happening to a country like this when people will watch two thugs, teenagers, attack a 66-year-old man, drag him down the street, and kill him? And you know what one of the thugs' only concern was after the car was flipped, after the car is leaking fuel, Muhammad Anwar has been thrown from the vehicle, laying lifeless on the street, nobody going to his aid. And you know what the little thug was screaming? My phone, my phone. Oh, my phone is in the car. This little thug wasn't worried about the man she just killed. She wasn't worried about the innocent life she just took. She was worried about her cell phone, which was probably a taxpayer-funded cell phone given to her by the government. Folks, if I sound angry, I'm not. I'm just right. I'm not angry. I'm just right. And I get passionate because what kind of society are we having? Who is raising teenagers to think that it's okay to go kill a man for his car? I mean, folks, it really brings tears to my eyes. But it really, really weighs on my heart that not only do we have teenagers that feel it okay to go kill a man for his car, but then the number of people who witnessed this who did not come to the aid of a 66-year-old man, wouldn't come to his aid. So, folks, ask yourself again, why isn't this being reported in the media? Why isn't this getting coverage? And then ask yourself, be honest with yourself. You know, if it had been two white people, two white kids, two white thugs that killed this Muslim man, you know darn well it would be wall to wall, 24/7, all over the media. And you know it. So why isn't it on the media now? Why isn't it being reported? And if that wasn't enough, Let me give you another example. In Virginia, on Friday, last week, folks, Friday of last week in Virginia, a 13-year-old girl by the name of Lucia Bremer was shot to death while walking with her friend right down the street. Shot to death. So here we have a senseless act of gun violence, but you're not hearing about it. You're not hearing about Lucia Bremer, 13-year-old girl shot to death in a senseless gun crime. But you're not hearing about it, folks. It's not on every news station. It's not being painted across the news waves 24/7. You're not hearing about it. This, in fact, might be the first time you're hearing about Lucia Bremer, 13-year-old, who was shot to death, multiple gunshot wounds, which killed her last Friday in Virginia. And you're not hearing about it. Senseless gun crime. You're not hearing about it. Why? Why do you think you're not hearing about this? Gee, could it be because the perp? Could it be because the shooter who shot this little girl? Could it be the shooter wasn't white? Could it be that the shooter just doesn't fit the narrative of the media? Could it be that if the media told this story, it wouldn't help them divide the country on race relations? Well, folks, give yourself a gold star if you came up with that reason, because that's exactly why you're not hearing about this story. In Virginia, folks, in Virginia last Friday, 13-year-old girl gunned down in the streets, just trying to walk with her friend, Lucia Bremer, shot to death. Senseless gun violence. But you're not hearing about it because the shooter, the perp, the thug, wasn't a white guy. Are you starting to understand when I tell you now, folks? The media doesn't care about you. Today's Democrat Party doesn't care about you. They only want to divide the citizens of this country. They want to put you in a box so that you can hate the other box. Divide, 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 folks. Look, you've heard it before. A divided nation can't stand, or a house divided can't stand. And it's true. And the American citizen, we the people, we really, really, really need to step back and say, you know what? No more. No more am I going to listen to the politician. No more is the career politician going to tell me that I need to hate my neighbor. No more. Folks, we have to say this. We've got to start getting together and band together and tell the career politician, we've had enough. We've had enough. So, all right, folks, I'm going to have to leave on that note. So you go do some research on yourself, and you'll see what you'll see what I'm saying. But I'm going to leave us now. It's been great. Please tune in next week. We will be back. If you want to hear any of my other shows, then you go find them on podcast. I'm everywhere. And look at America's Web Radio. We need your help. We would love to have it. Stay tuned. Locked and Loaded's up next with Roger B.
If you live to serve and want to make an even bigger difference, consider joining the U.S. Army with training in fields like medical care, linguistics, and engineering.